Hello everyone, my name is Adeniji and I'm going to be introducing you today to landing your probe tip on your sample on your Cronus Probe Station. So basically what we need to do first is after installing or inserting your device or installing your sample, just like we have over here on the screen, we're going to try and use the platen lever and we're going to use it to actually land our sample. So while we're trying to land our probe tips on our sample, we're going to make use of the platen lever over here, and while we're trying to land that, we're going to make use of the Z position on your micro positioners to actually make sure that we do not crash the probe tips into our sample. So we're going to monitor this on the screen, both using the microscope lens and also using the screen on the desktop. So I'm going to slowly lower this down, and as we begin to lower it down, you begin to see the probe tips begin to come together. I usually describe it as you want to see something more like an open fish mouth. So once you see your probe tips coming together and becoming sharp, you need to actually rotate your Z position anti-clockwise so that way your probe tips do not come in contact with your sample. So I'm going to lower this down gradually, and as you can see, the probe tips gradually becoming sharp, and any probe tip I see becoming close to each other, I'm going to rotate my Z position counterclockwise so that way it opens up the tip and I fully land my probe tip. And as you can see on the screen over here, you see that all of our 4 probe tips look out of focus and look very open, more like a fish mouth which is open. So once you've done that, the next thing is to drive your probe tip to the position in which you want to land, and then you land your probe tips using your Z position. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to use this is my X directional movement, this is my Y directional movement, and over here we have our Z directional movement. For your Z directional movement, rotating it clockwise means you are trying to bring the probe tip down. Rotating it anti-clockwise means you're trying to bring the probe tip up. So since we do not need to adjust the Z position first, what we need to do is we need to use both the X and the Y position to move our probe tip to the position in which we want to land. And while doing that, we need to make sure that the probe tips do not come in contact with each other. So what I'm going to do first is I'm going to try and adjust this probe tip. And as you can see, this is your X position and this is your Y movement. So I'm going to try and land my probe tip on this device over here, and as well land this probe tip on this device over here. So once I bring my probe tips to the edge of the device I want to land, what I need to do next is I need to rotate my Z position clockwise gradually until it lands. But before I rotate my Z position clockwise for it to land, I'm going to make sure that I'm first in contact mode on my instrument. So the first thing we need to do is we need to take our Z setup position from alignment down to contact. And all I need to do is click on this once, and you see that it becomes out of focus. What I need to do next is I need to refine my focus so that way I know exactly what is going on my screen. After refining your focus, then you can actually rotate your Z position or your Z micropositional position clockwise for it to land on your sample. So I'm going to land this first probe, and I'm going to rotate this clockwise. And as you begin to rotate it clockwise, you begin to see that the probe tip mouth becomes really fine and begins to close up. So as you keep on rotating this clockwise, you can always adjust your X position and your Y movement whatever way you want to land your probe. But what we need to make sure we do is that we place our probe tip at the edge of our device, because once we land our probe tip on our device, we are going to see that the probe tip slides a little bit forward into the device. So I'm going to rotate my Z position clockwise, and if you look closely, you're going to get a position, you're going to get to a point whereby you see your probe tip gradually slide into your device. So I rotate this Z position clockwise, and as you can see, it slid a little bit. For you to verify if you are actually in contact with your device, you need to go back into alignment height position and see if you have a scratch in between your device, and see if you have a scratch on your device. And now, after we've seen that we see a slide on our device, from my Z setup on my software, all I need to do is move back to alignment position and verify if you have a scratch. Now, sometimes you might not see the scratch visibly with your eyes, especially when you have a tip that is not so good anymore. So to verify that, all you need to do is move your X position away from your device, and as you can see, you have a very small scratch on your device. So that tells you that at that position, or at that Z setup, at that Z height, you already have your device coming in contact. You already have your probe tip coming in contact with your device whenever you go into your contact mode. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to bring back this probe tip onto my device, and I go back into contact mode and verify again. You will see that you should have a scratch on your device, just like we said earlier on. So if I move it to another position on my device and go back into contact mode, I should be able to see that same scratch on that device. So that is how you simply land a probe tip on any device you want to have, and that way you have good contact between the probe tip and the device you want to measure. I'm going to do the same thing using these micropositioners also to land this probe tip on my sample. So what I need to do is, first of all, position my Y directional movement, or the Y position of my probe tip, at the edge of my device. Use my X to realign it if I need to, and verify that I'm in contact mode. I'm at the contact height on my control center icon on my software, and gradually land my probe by rotating your Z micropositional by rotating it clockwise until you see a gentle slide on your device. So that is the slide we are expecting. To verify the slide again, or to verify the contact again, you go back into alignment height, move your device. So as you can see from alignment height, you can see a very small scratch on our device. If you are not sure about the scratch, you can adjust your X or your Y movement to verify if you have the scratch on your device. And as you can see there, we have a scratch on our device, and what it means is that once I place my probe tip back on my device and I go back into contact mode, all of my probe tips should be in contact with our device. And once that is done, then you need to go down into the semiconductor device analyzer and do your setup for what kind of measurements you need to take. So basically, that is how you land your probe tip on your device. So after landing your probe tip and taking whatever measurements you need to take, all you need to do is go back into alignment height and rotate your Z position for your probe, for your micropositioners. You rotate them anti-clockwise for about 10 rotations. So I'm going to rotate this about anti-clockwise for about 10 rotations. Rotating that anti-clockwise for about 10 rotations, it means that whoever is going to come in here and use the instrument is going to be at a safe distance between the probe tip and their sample, and they're not going to have their sample crashing onto the device, or rather having the probe tip crashing onto the device. So once that is done and all measurements have been taken, you've rotated back your Z position for your micropositioners counterclockwise for around 10 rotations. Then you need to slowly bring back your Platin lever to make sure that your probe tip do not come so close to your sample. And that is how you primarily land your probe tip on any kind of device you have, verifying that you have a scratch on your device and making sure you are in contact mode to make sure that your probe tip and your sample are in contact. That way you can pass, either you want to pass current into your sample or you want to pass voltage into your sample to make sure that you have a good measurement. And that is all that we have to do today.